Autumn of 1889. The fog rolled through the Chicago rail yard like a ghostly shroud, swallowing the last trains of the evening and the dreams they carried. On Platform 7 of Union Station, a young woman sat perfectly still on a wooden bench, her fingers resting on a worn leather music case. Her eyes, though open, stared at nothing, seeing nothing. She had been sitting there for 6 hours, and no one had come. No one was coming. In her pocket was a crumpled note, for dollars and coins, and the shattered remains of a heart that had trusted the wrong person. What happened next would become the most controversial love story of the Gilded Age, scandalizing high society from Boston to San Francisco, and proving that sometimes the greatest vision comes from the heart, not the eyes. The temperature was dropping as night settled over Chicago, and Kate Brennan pulled her thin coat tighter around her shoulders. She could hear the sounds of the station around her. Footsteps echoing on marble floors, distant voices calling out departures, the hiss of steam from the locomotives. But beneath it all was silence, the terrible silence of abandonment. Kate had been blind since she was 7 years old, when scarlet fever had stolen her sight but somehow sharpened everything else. She'd learned to navigate the world through sound, touch, and an almost supernatural awareness of the space around her. And she'd discovered music, or rather, music had discovered her. By age 12, she was playing piano in her family's Boston parlor for their wealthy guests. By 15, she was performing in concert halls throughout New England. By 20, she'd been accepted to study at the prestigious Vienna Conservatory, one of the first American women, and the first blind woman ever admitted. But that dream had died 6 months ago when both her parents perished in a hotel fire while traveling in New York. The inheritance she'd expected turned out to be a mountain of her father's secret gambling debts. The Boston house was sold, the furniture auctioned, and Kate found herself alone in the world with nothing but her talent and her beloved piano. A Steinway grand that had been her father's gift on her 16th birthday. That's when Harold Whitmore had entered her life. He'd introduced himself as a concert promoter with connections throughout the Midwest. He'd heard her play at her parents' funeral. She'd performed despite her grief, because music was the only language she had for sorrow, and he'd been moved, he said, by her extraordinary talent. "Miss Brennan," he'd told her in his smooth, cultured voice, "I can make you a star. Concert halls in Chicago, St. Louis, even San Francisco. You'll be billed as the blind angel of the piano. The audiences will love you." He'd promised her a contract, transportation, accommodations in Chicago while they prepared for her debut. He'd even arranged for her precious Steinway to be shipped ahead. All she needed to do was meet him at Union Station on October 15th, and he'd take care of everything. So Kate had used the last of her money for a train ticket to Chicago, said goodbye to the few friends she had left in Boston, and traveled west with hope blooming in her chest for the first time since her parents' death. But Harold Whitmore never came. She'd been waiting since 2 o'clock that afternoon. Now it was past 8, and the station was emptying. Kate had asked 3 different porters if they'd seen Mr. Whitmore. Tall gentleman, expensive suit, carrying a silver-topped cane. But no one had seen him. One porter had tried to help her find a hotel, but when Kate checked her purse and found only $4, he'd grown quiet. That wouldn't pay for even one night in a decent Chicago hotel. The worst part was her piano. She'd asked at the freight office, and yes, a Steinway grand had arrived 3 days ago, signed for by a Mr. Harold Whitmore. But when she'd asked to see it, to verify it was hers, they told her it had been picked up that very morning by Mr. Whitmore himself. He'd shown the proper documentation and paid the storage fees. The piano was gone. Kate sat on that bench, fighting back tears, and finally understood the truth. Harold Whitmore had never been a concert promoter. He'd been a con man who'd seen a blind woman with a valuable piano and had orchestrated an elaborate scheme to steal it. He'd probably sold it already, and she'd never see it, never touch those keys again. "Miss? Miss, are you all right?" The voice was deep and warm, with a slight accent Kate couldn't quite place. Educated, certainly, but with rough edges that spoke of a life lived beyond parlors and concert halls. "I'm fine, thank you," Kate said automatically, though her voice trembled with the lie. "Forgive me for being forward, but you've been sitting here for hours." I've been in the station manager's office handling some business, and I've seen you through the window. It's getting cold, and the station closes in an hour. Do you have somewhere to go?" Kate's pride warred with her desperation. Finally, desperation won. "I was supposed to meet someone, but he didn't come. I'm afraid I've been fooled." There was a pause, and Kate heard the man sit down on the bench beside her, but not too close, respecting her space. "Fooled how?" he asked gently. Something about his voice made Kate want to trust him. Maybe it was the genuine concern she heard, or maybe it was simply that she had no other options. So she told him everything. Harold Whitmore, the promised concerts, the stolen piano, her last $4. When she finished, the man was silent for a long moment. Then he said, his voice tight with controlled anger, "Harold Whitmore. Medium height, thinning brown hair, scar on his left hand." Kate's heart jumped. "I don't know about the scar. I've never seen him, but his voice matches that description. Do you know him?" "Unfortunately, he's a known confidence man. He's pulled this scheme before with musicians, artists, anyone with something valuable. He sells their instruments or paintings and disappears. The police know about him, but he always moves on before they can catch him." Kate felt the last of her hope crumble. "Then my piano is truly gone." "Not necessarily," the man said, and she heard a new determination in his voice. "I have some connections in this city. If your piano was sold, I can find out where. But first, we need to get you somewhere safe and warm. Have you eaten today?" No. I didn't want to spend the money." She heard the man stand up. "Miss Brennan. It is Miss Brennan, yes? My name is James Blackwood. I own the Midwestern Railroad Company, and Union Station is my property, which means you're technically my guest, and I don't let my guests go hungry or freeze on train platforms. Will you allow me to help you?" Kate recognized the name immediately. James Blackwood was one of the wealthiest men in America, a self-made millionaire who'd built a railroad empire from nothing. The newspapers called him the Steel Prince of Chicago. She'd even played at a benefit once where he'd been an honored guest, though they'd never met. "Mr. Blackwood, I can't accept charity from—" "It's not charity," James interrupted gently. "It's hospitality. There's a difference. And besides," his voice softened, "I have a particular hatred for men who prey on women in vulnerable situations. Helping you would actually give me great pleasure." Kate hesitated, her trained instincts for danger warring with her practical need for help. She'd learned to read voices the way sighted people read faces, and James Blackwood's voice rang with sincerity. "All right," she said finally. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwood." She felt his hand touch her elbow, warm and steady. "Can you walk? Or would you like me to bring a carriage directly to the platform?" "I can walk if you guide me," Kate said, standing and picking up her music case. "I'm blind, Mr. Blackwood, but I'm not helpless." She heard the smile in his voice. "I can see that, Miss Brennan. Shall we?" Before we continue with this remarkable story, tell us where you're watching from, and hit subscribe to hear more tales of love that defied society's expectations. The Palmer House Hotel was the grandest establishment in Chicago, and Kate could sense its opulence even without seeing it. The warmth hit her first as they entered, then the smell of expensive cigars and perfume, the soft murmur of wealthy voices, the plush carpet under her feet. "Mr. Blackwood," a refined voice greeted them. "How wonderful to see you this evening. Will you be dining with us?" "Yes, Charles. My private dining room, please. And have the kitchen send up a full dinner. No, make it 2 dinners. And hot coffee immediately." "Of course, sir. Right this way." Kate felt James guide her through the hotel, heard the whispers as people recognized him, felt their curious stares. She could imagine what they saw. Chicago's most eligible bachelor escorting a poorly dressed woman with unseeing eyes. The gossip would start before they finished their meal. The private dining room was warm and quiet, and James settled Kate into a chair with practiced ease. "The table is directly in front of you," he said. "Coffee cup at 2 o'clock, water glass at 1. Silverware is standard placement." Kate was impressed. "You know how to guide a blind person." "My younger sister was blind," James said quietly. Before she died, she taught me that being blind didn't mean being incapable. Just different. I'm sorry for your loss, Kate said softly. It was a long time ago. She was 10. I was 15. Pneumonia took her. James paused. But she could play the piano too. Not like you, I'm sure, but she loved it. Said music let her see colors. Kate smiled despite her exhaustion. Yes, that's exactly right. Different notes are different colors in my mind. It's hard to explain to people who can see. Sarah used to say middle C was yellow like sunshine, James said. For me it's gold, Kate replied. Like honey in sunlight. They talked about music while the food came and what food it was. Kate hadn't eaten a proper meal in days, and she had to force herself to eat slowly, maintaining her dignity despite her hunger. Miss Brennan, James said after they'd been eating for a while, tell me about your piano, the one Whitmore stole. Kate's hand trembled as she set down her fork. It was a Steinway Grand, built in 1875. My father bought it for my 16th birthday. The tone was perfect, warm and resonant with just a slight brightness in the upper registers. I knew every key, every quirk. The middle D stuck just slightly if you didn't hit it firmly. The sustain pedal squeaked if you pressed it too quickly. Her voice broke. It was the last piece of my parents I had left. I'm going to get it back, James said with quiet certainty. Mr. Blackwood, you can't possibly. I can and I will. I have investigators on my payroll. I'll have them start searching tonight. If your piano was sold in Chicago, we'll find it. And if it's already been shipped elsewhere, we'll track it down. It might take time, but I give you my word. I'll find your piano. Kate felt tears spill down her cheeks. Why would you do this for a stranger? James was quiet for a moment. Because I've built an empire, Miss Brennan, and I've forgotten what it's like to truly help someone who needs it. Because my sister would have wanted me to. And because... He paused. Because when I heard you speak about your piano, I heard the same passion I feel about my railroads. That kind of love deserves to be honored, not stolen. After dinner, James arranged a room for Kate at the Palmer House. A beautiful suite with everything she could need. He'd also sent staff to purchase her new clothes, toiletries, everything that had been stolen from her by Whitmore's deception. I've taken the liberty of hiring a lady's companion for you, James said as he prepared to leave. Her name is Mrs. Sullivan. She'll help you navigate the hotel and the city while you're here. And I've arranged for you to have an account at the hotel, meals, services, everything. Just sign for it. Mr. Blackwood, I can't accept. James, please. And you can, and you will. Consider it a loan if that makes you feel better. When you're performing in concert halls again, you can pay me back. But right now, you need help, and I'm in a position to give it. Please, let me. Kate felt overwhelmed by his kindness. I don't know what to say. Say you'll have breakfast with me tomorrow, James said. I want to hear you play. There's a piano in the hotel's music room. Will you play for me? Yes, I'd like that. Good. I'll see you at 9 o'clock then. Good night, Miss Brennan. Good night, Mr. Blackwood. And thank you for everything. After he left, Kate sat in her luxurious room, running her hands over the fine fabrics, smelling the fresh flowers someone had placed on the table. For the first time in months, she felt safe. But more than that, she felt something else. Something dangerous. She felt hope. And beneath it, a warmth that had nothing to do with the hotel's heating and everything to do with the deep, kind voice of James Blackwood. Kate woke the next morning to Mrs. Sullivan's gentle knock and cheerful voice. The older woman helped her bathe and dress in one of the new dresses James had provided. A soft wool and deep blue that Mrs. At precisely 9 o'clock, Mrs. Sullivan guided Kate down to the hotel's music room. She could smell James before she heard him. That same combination of expensive soap, leather, and something else. Tobacco, maybe, and ink. Miss Brennan, James greeted her warmly. You look well rested. I am, thank you. It's been a long time since I've slept in such a comfortable bed. I'm glad. Come, let me show you the piano. He guided her to the instrument, and Kate's hands found the keys immediately. It wasn't her Steinway. The touch was different, the tone less warm, but it was well-maintained and in tune. "Will you play something for me?" James asked softly. Kate didn't answer with words. Instead, she let her fingers speak, falling into Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. The music poured out of her like water from a spring, each note precisely placed, each phrase shaped with the kind of emotional depth that only comes from truly understanding the piece. She could feel James listening, could feel the quality of his attention like a physical presence. When she finished, there was a long silence. "My God," James said finally, his voice rough with emotion. "The newspapers don't exaggerate. You're extraordinary." Kate felt her cheeks warm. "You're kind to say so." "I'm not being kind. I'm being honest. Kate, Miss Brennan, you should be performing in the greatest concert halls in the world. What Whitmore did to you is criminal, but it's also a crime against music itself." "That's a lovely thought," Kate said sadly. "But without my piano, without connections, without money." "Dreams don't pay bills, Mr. Blackwood." "James," he corrected. "And I have a proposition for you." Kate's hands stilled on the keys. "What kind of proposition?" "I'm hosting a benefit concert next month for the Chicago Children's Hospital. The biggest names in Chicago society will be there, along with newspaper critics from across the country. I want you to perform." Kate's heart raced. "James, I couldn't possibly." "Why not? You're brilliant, and I have the connections to make sure the right people hear you. After they do, you'll have more concert offers than you can handle." "But I don't have my piano," Kate said. "I can't perform on just any instrument. I need to know it to feel comfortable with it." "Then we'll find you a piano you love," James said simply. "I'll buy you the best Steinway in Chicago if necessary. Consider it an investment in your career." Kate shook her head. "You're too generous. Why are you doing this for me?" She heard James move closer, felt him sit beside her on the piano bench. "Honestly, at first, I wanted to help because I hate seeing talented people exploited. But now," he paused, "now it's because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since last night. About your courage, your talent, your grace despite everything you've lost. You're remarkable, Kate, and the world deserves to hear you play." Kate's breath caught. She could feel the warmth of him beside her, could hear something in his voice that made her heart beat faster. "James, I'm blind. I'm penniless. I'm nobody. You're James Blackwood. You could have any woman in Chicago." "I don't want any woman in Chicago," James said softly. "I want to hear you play again. I want to help you reclaim your career. And yes, I want to spend more time with you." "Is that so terrible?" Kate's hands trembled on the keys. "People will talk. They probably already are. Let them talk. I stopped caring what society thought of me years ago. I built my fortune my way, and I'll live my life my way. The question is, what do you want?" What did she want? Kate had spent so many years just surviving, just getting through each day, that she'd almost forgotten how to want things for herself. But sitting here, beside this man who'd rescued her and believed in her, she felt something stirring in her chest, something that felt like possibility. "I want to play," she said finally. "I want to perform again. I want people to hear my music." "Then let's make that happen," James said, "starting with finding you the perfect piano. What do you say we visit every piano showroom in Chicago?" Despite everything, Kate laughed. "That could take days." "Then we'll take days. I'm a very patient man when I want something, Kate, and I want to hear you play your best." Over the next 2 weeks, James and Kate visited every piano dealer in Chicago. Kate tried dozens of instruments, running her hands over keys, testing pedals, listening to tone and resonance. James watched her work with fascination, learning to hear the subtle differences she could detect instantly. "This one's too bright," she'd say. "The bass notes lack depth. This one's better, but the action is too stiff. This one, oh wait, play middle C for me." James would obediently play the note, and Kate would tilt her head, listening with her whole body. "Again? No, the sustain isn't long enough. I need more resonance for the Rachmaninoff piece I want to play. They were in the fifth showroom, and James was beginning to understand just how particular a concert pianist had to be about their instrument, when Kate suddenly stopped at a piano in the corner. "What about this one?" she asked, though she hadn't touched it yet. "How did you know that one was there?" James asked, fascinated. "The room sounds different when I'm standing here. There's an instrument-absorbing sound in this corner." Kate reached out and found the piano, another Steinway but an older model. She ran her hands over the wood, then sat down and played a single note. James saw her entire body relax. "This is it," she whispered. "James, this is the one." She began to play, and James understood immediately why this piano was special. The tone was rich and warm, with a singing quality that made every note feel alive. Kate's playing took on a new dimension, more expressive, more free. When she finished, there were tears on her cheeks. "It's not my old piano," she said softly, "but it's right. Feels like home." James didn't hesitate. "We'll take it. Have it delivered to the Palmer House's ballroom by tomorrow morning." The dealer, who'd been hovering nervously, rushed forward. "Oh, Mr. Blackwood, sir. That piano is already sold. A deposit was placed just this morning by a Mr. "I'll pay triple whatever he offered," James interrupted. "And I'll pay in full today cash, plus a generous bonus for breaking the other agreement." The dealer's eyes went wide. Yes, Mr. Blackwood. Of course. Consider it yours." As they left the showroom, Kate reached for James's arm. "You didn't have to do that. It was terribly expensive. Worth every penny to hear you play like that," James said. And then, more quietly, "Besides, I'd spend 10 times that much to see you smile the way you did when you found the right piano." Kate felt her cheeks warm. Over the past 2 weeks, she and James had spent hours together. He'd told her about his childhood in poverty, his determination to build something meaningful, the loneliness of being wealthy but isolated. She'd told him about her music, her parents, her fears and hopes. They'd shared meals, laughter, and increasingly, moments of comfortable silence that felt more intimate than any conversation. Kate knew she was falling in love with him. She also knew it was impossible. Men like James Blackwood didn't marry blind women with no family and no fortune. The newspapers were already full of speculation about Blackwood's blind protégé. Some articles kind, others cruel, all of them assuming the worst. But for now, in this moment, walking through Chicago with her hand on his arm, Kate let herself pretend that maybe, just maybe, fairy tales could come true. James's investigators finally found a lead on Kate's stolen Steinway 3 weeks after he'd found her at the station. It had been sold to a wealthy family in Milwaukee, who'd bought it in good faith from what they thought was a legitimate dealer. James took Kate on his private rail car to Milwaukee, and when they arrived at the family's mansion, the wife, a Mrs. Harding, greeted them with obvious sympathy. "Miss Brennan, my husband and I were horrified to learn this piano was stolen from you. Of course you must have it back. We've already contacted the police about the dealer who sold it to us." Kate ran her hands over the familiar wood, touched the keys that she knew better than her own face. "Thank you," she whispered. "You can't know what this means to me." "I think we can," Mrs. Harding said kindly. "I play piano myself, though nothing like your level of skill. I'd be heartbroken if someone stole my instrument." They arranged for the piano to be shipped back to Chicago, and on the train ride home, Kate was quietly joyful. "I can't believe you found it," she kept saying. "I really can't believe it." "I promised I would," James said simply. "I don't break my promises, Kate." The benefit concert was now just 1 week away, and Kate had both her beloved Steinway and her new piano to choose from. She decided to play the Steinway for half the program, the pieces that reminded her of her parents and her past, and the new piano for the second half, representing her future. "It's symbolic," she explained to James during one of their practice sessions. "The old and the new together." "Like us," James said quietly. Kate's hands stilled on the keys. "James. Kate, we need to talk about this. About us. You have to know how I feel about you." "Please don't," Kate whispered. "Please don't say something that will make this harder." Make what harder? The inevitable end. When I perform next week, when I hopefully get other concert opportunities, when I leave Chicago and you go back to your life. When this fairy tale ends and reality returns. She heard James stand, felt him move to stand beside the piano. What if it doesn't have to end? What if this isn't a fairy tale, but the beginning of something real? James, be sensible. You're one of the wealthiest men in America. I'm a blind musician who was abandoned at your train station. Your friends, your business associates, society, they'd never accept me. They'd say I was taking advantage of you, that I'm a gold digger, that you're making a fool of yourself out of pity. I don't care what they say, James said fiercely. Do you know what I see when I look at you? You shouldn't see anything, Kate said with a bitter laugh. That's rather the point. I can't even look back at you. I see strength, James continued as if she hadn't spoken. I see grace under impossible circumstances. I see a woman who didn't let blindness or poverty or betrayal break her spirit. I see someone who makes me want to be a better man. And yes, I see beauty, extraordinary beauty, Kate. Not just your face, though you're lovely, but the beauty of your character, your talent, your heart. James, please. I'm in love with you, Kate. Completely, impossibly in love with you. And I hope you feel the same way. Kate felt tears streaming down her face. Of course I do. I've been in love with you since that first night, when you could have walked past me but didn't. When you treated me with dignity instead of pity. When you looked at me and saw a person, not a disability. But love isn't enough. Why isn't it enough? James demanded. We're both adults. We both know what we want. Why should other people's narrow-minded prejudices matter? Because they do matter. Kate stood up, agitated. James, I can't even walk through your hotel without a guide. I can't see your face, can't look into your eyes. What kind of wife would I be? I couldn't host your business dinners, couldn't navigate society events, couldn't what? Couldn't love me? Couldn't make me happier than I've ever been? Couldn't fill our home with music and laughter? Because those are the things I care about, Kate. Not whether you can see the faces of people I don't care about anyway. This is insane, Kate whispered. You should marry someone appropriate. Someone who can stand beside you without embarrassing you. Someone who can give you children without worrying about passing on blindness. My sister's blindness wasn't hereditary, James said gently. It was caused by illness. And even if our children were blind, we'd love them and teach them to navigate the world just like your parents taught you. Just like my parents taught Sarah. Blindness isn't a tragedy, Kate. It's just a different way of experiencing life. Kate sank back onto the piano bench, overwhelmed. Everyone will think you're making a mistake. Let them think what they want. I've never lived my life according to other people's expectations, and I'm not about to start now. But Kate, I need to know. Do you love me? Yes, Kate whispered. God help me, yes. Then marry me. Not because I rescued you, not because you're grateful, but because we love each other and we're better together than we are apart. Marry me and let me spend the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice. Kate sat in silence, her mind racing. Everything logical told her to say no, to protect both of them from the scandal and judgment that would surely come. But her heart was singing a different song. Yes, she said finally. Yes, I'll marry you, James Blackwood. But on one condition. Anything. We wait until after the concert. Let me prove to the world and to myself that I'm more than just Blackwood's charity case. Let me stand on that stage and show everyone that I'm a serious musician who earned her place there. Then, when we announce our engagement, it will be clear that I'm your equal, not your dependent. James was quiet for a moment. Then she heard the smile in his voice. You're brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. All right, we wait. But Kate. Yes. After that concert, when you've proven to everyone what I already know, that you're one of the most talented pianists in the country, I'm going to marry you so fast society won't have time to object before it's already done. Kate laughed despite her tears. Is that a promise? It's a vow, James said, and she heard him move closer. May I kiss you? Yes, Kate whispered. Please. His lips met hers, gentle at first, then deeper as she responded. Kate had been kissed before, but never like this. Never with this sense of coming home, of finding something she hadn't even known she was missing. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. 1 week, James said. Then the world gets to watch you shine. And then, Kate Brennan, you're going to become Kate Blackwood, and we're going to scandalous this city together. I can't wait, Kate said, and meant it with her whole heart. The night of the benefit concert arrived, and the Palmer House Ballroom was packed with Chicago's elite. Every seat was filled, and people were standing in the back. James had made sure that newspaper critics from New York, Boston, and even London were in attendance. Backstage, Kate waited with her hands clasped tightly in her lap, trying to calm her racing heart. She'd performed hundreds of times before, but never with such high stakes. Tonight would determine her entire future. Kate, James's voice warm and reassuring. How are you feeling? Terrified, she admitted. What if I fail? What if they think I'm only here because of your influence? Then they'd be fools, James said. But they won't think that. The moment you play the first note, they'll know you're here because you're brilliant. Now, I have something for you. She felt him press something into her hand. A small box. What is this? Open it. Inside was a ring. She could feel the delicate band, the large stone. James, we agreed to wait. It's not an engagement ring, James interrupted. It's a promise ring. My sister's ring, actually. My mother gave it to her before she died. Sarah would have wanted you to have it. For luck tonight. Kate felt tears threaten. I can't wear your sister's ring. You can and you will. She'd be so proud of you, Kate. She'd have loved you. Now, put it on your right hand, and let it remind you that you're not alone. I'm in the audience, and I believe in you. Sarah's spirit is with you. Your parents would be proud of you. You're going to be magnificent. Kate slipped the ring on her finger and felt a sense of calm wash over her. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. Go show them what real talent looks like, James said, and she heard him leave. A moment later, the stage manager touched her elbow. Miss Brennan, it's time. Mrs. Sullivan guided Kate onto the stage, and the room fell silent. Kate could feel hundreds of eyes on her, could hear the rustle of programs and whispers. She knew what they were thinking. Blackwood's blind protégé, his charity case, his latest project. Let them think it. Her playing would speak louder than any rumor. She found her Steinway. Mrs. Sullivan had helped her memorize the exact number of steps from the wings, and settled onto the bench. She took a deep breath, said a silent prayer to her parents and to James's sister Sarah, and began to play. The opening notes of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata filled the ballroom, and Kate poured everything she had into the music. Every ounce of grief for her lost parents, every moment of fear and desperation, every spark of hope and love she'd found with James. It all flowed through her fingers into the keys. The room was utterly silent except for the music. She moved through her program. Beethoven, Chopin, Liszt, Rachmaninoff. For the finale, she'd chosen something special. A piece she'd been composing herself over the past weeks, inspired by her journey. She called it Union Station Requiem, and it told the story of loss and redemption, of darkness and light, of finding love in the most unexpected place. When the final notes faded, there was a moment of absolute silence. Then the ballroom erupted in thunderous applause. People were on their feet, shouting brava and encore. Kate could hear women crying, could feel the energy of the crowd like a physical force. She stood and took a bow, her heart soaring. She'd done it. She'd proven herself. As the applause continued, she felt someone take her hand. James, leading her off the stage. You were perfect, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Absolutely perfect. Backstage, they were immediately mobbed by well-wishers. Concert promoters pressed business cards into her hands, offering performances in New York, Boston, Philadelphia, even Paris. Society matrons gushed about her talent. Newspaper critics promised glowing reviews. But Kate was only aware of James beside her, his hand warm in hers, his pride radiating like heat. Finally, when the crowd had thinned, James led her to a quiet corner. "Kate, I know we agreed to wait, but I can't. Not another minute. Not after watching you up there, showing the world how extraordinary you are." He took both her hands in his. "Kate Brennan, I love you with everything I am. Will you marry me? Not next month or next year, but soon. As soon as possible. Will you be my wife?" "Yes," Kate said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, James. Yes." He pulled her into his arms and kissed her, not caring that they were still in a semi-public space, not caring that people were watching. When they finally broke apart, Kate heard applause again, but this time it was just a few people. Mrs. Sullivan, the stage manager, a few lingering guests who'd witnessed the proposal. "Well," James said with a laugh, "I suppose the secret's out now." "I suppose it is," Kate agreed, not caring one bit. The newspapers had a field day. "Blind Pianist Captures Railroad Baron's Heart," read one headline. "Blackwood to marry his proj," declared another. Some articles were kind, praising Kate's talent and celebrating the romance. Others were vicious, calling her a fortune hunter, suggesting she'd manipulated a lonely man's sympathies, questioning whether someone blind could possibly be a suitable wife for a man of Blackwood's stature. The most brutal came from a society columnist named Vivian Ashworth, who wrote, "One must question Mr. Blackwood's judgment in this matter. While Miss Brennan may possess musical talent, she lacks the breeding, connections, and quite frankly, the basic capabilities required of a woman in her proposed position. How can a blind woman possibly manage a household, host society events, or fulfill the duties expected of Mrs. James Blackwood? This union, however romantic it may seem, is destined for disaster and humiliation for all involved." Kate was reading the article, or rather, having Mrs. Sullivan read it to her, when James burst into her suite at the Palmer House. "Have you seen this drivel from Vivian Ashworth?" he demanded. "I've heard it," Kate said calmly. "Mrs. Sullivan was just reading it to me. It's libel. I should sue her and her newspaper for—" "James," Kate interrupted gently. "Stop. Suing her will only give her more attention and make us look defensive. Besides, she's not entirely wrong." "What?" James's voice was incredulous. Kate stood and walked toward his voice, finding his chest with her hands. "I am blind, James. I can't manage a household the way a sighted woman could. I can't see the faces of your business associates or navigate unfamiliar social situations without help. These are facts, not insults. But you're also brilliant, talented, courageous, and resourceful," James argued. "You've overcome obstacles most people couldn't imagine. You've built a career through sheer determination. Kate, you're not defined by what you can't do." "I know that," Kate said, "but the world doesn't. And Vivian Ashworth speaks for a lot of people who think exactly what she wrote. If we're going to do this, really do this, we need to face that reality head-on." James pulled her close. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we don't hide. We don't apologize. We show society exactly what our marriage will look like. We attend every event, every dinner, every function. We let them see that I can be your wife, your partner, your equal. And if some people can't accept that, then they don't deserve to be part of our lives." "You're going to walk into the lion's den deliberately," James said with dawning understanding. "I'm going to show them that love and capability come in many forms," Kate corrected. "And I'm going to need your help to do it." Over the next month, James and Kate became the most talked-about couple in Chicago. They attended the opera, where Kate demonstrated her extensive knowledge of music and composition, impressing even the most skeptical critics. They hosted a dinner party at James's mansion, where Kate, with Mrs. Sullivan's discreet assistance, proved to be a charming and capable hostess. At a museum benefit, Kate gave an impromptu lecture on how blind people experience art through touch and description, fascinating the crowd and changing several minds about the limitations of blindness. And everywhere they went, James made it clear that Kate was his intellectual equal, his chosen partner, and the woman he loved, not a charity case or a project, but his future wife. The turning point came at a particularly exclusive society dinner hosted by the formidable Mrs. Cornelius Hampton, the undisputed queen of Chicago society. James and Kate had been invited, though everyone knew it was a test. Mrs. Hampton would decide whether Kate was acceptable, and her opinion would sway the rest of high society. The evening started well enough. Kate navigated the receiving line with grace, her hand on James's arm, greeting each guest with genuine warmth. At dinner, she was seated between Mrs. Hampton and a prominent banker, and she held her own in conversations about music, literature, and current events. But then Vivian Ashworth, who was also in attendance, decided to make trouble. "Miss Brennan," she said loudly during a lull in conversation, "I'm curious, when you and Mr. Blackwood have children, how will you care for them? How will you know if they're hurt or in danger if you can't see them?" The table fell silent. Kate felt every eye on her, waiting to see how she'd respond to this deliberate provocation. "The same way any mother knows," Kate said calmly. "By listening to them, by touching them, by knowing them so well that I can sense when something is wrong. My own mother was sighted, and yet she often said she could sense my moods and needs before I even spoke them. Motherhood isn't about sight, Miss Ashworth. It's about attention, love, and dedication." "But surely you'll need servants to do everything for you," Vivian pressed. "How can you possibly manage?" "Miss Ashworth," Mrs. Hampton interrupted, her voice cold as ice, "I believe you're being deliberately rude to my guest. Perhaps you should reconsider your line of questioning." Vivian paled but pressed on. "I'm simply asking questions that everyone is thinking. Is it fair to Mr. Blackwood to saddle him with a wife who is more accomplished than half the women in this room?" Mrs. Hampton said sharply. "Who has overcome more adversity than any of us could imagine? Who has built an international reputation through talent and determination? Miss Ashworth, I've been watching Miss Brennan all evening. She has navigated every social challenge with grace and intelligence. She's contributed meaningfully to every conversation. She's shown more genuine character than many sighted women I could name." Mrs. Hampton turned to Kate. "My dear, I owe you an apology. I invited you here tonight as a test, to determine whether you were worthy of Mr. Blackwood and your position in our society. But I was asking the wrong question. The real question is whether our society is worthy of you. And based on Miss Ashworth's behavior, I'm not certain it is." Kate felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you, Mrs. Hampton. That's very kind." "It's not kindness. It's honesty," Mrs. Hampton replied. "And I'll tell you something else. My own daughter was born with a club foot. The doctor said she'd never walk properly, never dance, never marry. But she proved them all wrong. She walked down the aisle at her wedding without a cane, and she now has 3 beautiful children. I learned then that limitations are often in the minds of observers, not in the hearts of those who face them." She raised her wine glass. "A toast to Miss Brennan and Mr. Blackwood. May your marriage be long, happy, and serve as an example to us all that love sees with the heart, not the eyes." The table erupted in applause and agreement. Vivian Ashworth, thoroughly routed, left early with a headache. After dinner, Mrs. Hampton pulled Kate aside. "My dear, you have my full support, and I promise you, anyone who speaks ill of your marriage will find themselves uninvited from my events. And in Chicago, that's a social death sentence." "Thank you," Kate said, squeezing the older woman's hand. "But I don't want to force people to accept me. I just want the chance to prove myself." "You've already done that," Mrs. Hampton said warmly. "Now you just need to live your life and let the naysayers learn their lesson." The wedding took place on a cold December morning in 1889, just 3 months after James had found Kate at Union Station. It was held at Chicago's most prestigious church, and despite the rushed timeline, it was the social event of the season. Kate wore a gown of ivory silk that felt like water against her skin. Mrs. Sullivan had woven orange blossoms into her hair, and she carried a bouquet of roses that James had chosen. He described each color to her in detail, and she'd selected her favorites by scent. Since Kate had no family to give her away, Mrs. Hampton's husband offered to escort her down the aisle. But Kate had a different idea. "Mrs. Sullivan," she said to her companion the morning of the wedding. "Would you walk with me? You've been with me through everything these past months. You've been more than a companion, you've been a friend. I'd be honored if you'd stand with me." Mrs. Sullivan wept and agreed immediately. As the organ began to play and Kate walked down the aisle on Mrs. Sullivan's arm, she could hear the whispers of the assembled guests. But they weren't unkind whispers, they were awed. "She's beautiful," someone murmured. "So graceful," another added. "Blackwood's a lucky man." Kate felt James waiting for her at the altar, could sense his presence like a magnetic pull. When Mrs. Sullivan placed Kate's hand in James's, Kate felt a wave of emotion so strong she almost couldn't breathe. "You're stunning," James whispered. "I wish you could see yourself." "Describe me," Kate whispered back. "Your dress catches the light like moonlight on water. Your hair falls in waves over your shoulders. But it's your face that takes my breath away. You're glowing with happiness, Kate. Pure joy. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." The minister began the ceremony, and Kate barely heard the words. All she could focus on was James's hand holding hers, warm and steady and strong. When it came time for the vows, James spoke first. "I, James Thomas Blackwood, take you, Catherine Rose Brennan, to be my lawfully wedded wife. Before God and these witnesses, I promise to love you not in spite of your blindness, but with full appreciation for every aspect of who you are. I promise to be your eyes when you need them, but never to assume you need them. I promise to be your partner, your equal, your companion in all things. From this day forward, your dreams are my dreams. Your joy is my joy, and your music will fill our home for all our days." There wasn't a dry eye in the church. Kate's voice was steady as she spoke her own vows. "I, Catherine Rose Brennan, take you, James Thomas Blackwood, to be my lawfully wedded husband. Before God and these witnesses, I promise to love you not for what you've given me, but for who you are. I promise to be your partner in building a life that honors both our dreams. I promise to fill your days with music and laughter, to challenge you when you need challenging, and to stand beside you through whatever comes. From this day forward, your heart is my heart, your home is my home, and your love is the greatest gift I've ever received." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, James's kiss was gentle and reverent, a promise of all the kisses to come. The reception at the Palmer house was spectacular, but the moment Kate remembered most clearly was her performance. She'd insisted on playing for their guests, and when she sat at her beloved Steinway and began to play the piece she'd composed for James, Love at Union Station, there was absolute silence. The music told their story. The loneliness of the opening bars, the meeting in the middle section, the soaring joy of the finale. When she finished, even the waiters were crying. James came to the piano and kissed her in front of everyone. "That was our story," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "That was our beginning," Kate corrected. "We have so much more story to write." The first year of marriage brought adjustments for both James and Kate. They learned each other's rhythms, their needs and quirks. James learned to narrate the world for Kate when she needed it, describing sunsets and paintings, reading newspapers aloud, letting her touch his face when she wanted to see his expressions. Kate learned to ask for help when she needed it, but also to assert her independence. She hired staff who understood that she was capable, not helpless, and she established routines that allowed her to manage their home efficiently. But the greatest challenge came from James's business associates. Several of them questioned whether he could remain focused on the railroad company with a disabled wife to care for. Others suggested, not subtly, that he should reconsider some business decisions Kate had advised him on. The breaking point came at a board meeting 6 months into their marriage. Kate had suggested that James invest in a new route through the Midwest, based on her extensive travels as a concert pianist and her knowledge of growing towns that needed better transportation. James had brought the proposal to the board. "With all due respect, Mr. Blackwood," one board member said, "I think your wife's condition may have affected her judgment on this matter. A blind woman couldn't possibly understand the complexities of railroad economics." James's response was immediate and fierce. "Gentlemen, my wife has traveled more of this country than any of you. She's performed in dozens of cities and can tell you which ones are growing, which have strong economies, and which are desperate for better transportation. Her condition, as you so tactlessly put it, has actually made her more observant, not less. She listens to people, pays attention to details you miss while you're looking at balance sheets. And I'll tell you something else. The last 3 investments she's advised me on have returned 30% more than the board's recommendations. So unless you want to continue looking foolish, I suggest you take her advice seriously. The board was silent, then grudgingly approved the route. It became one of the company's most profitable lines. But Kate knew she needed to do more than prove herself through James's defense. She needed to show the world and herself that she was a full partner in their life together. So she continued performing, now as Kate Blackwood, and her fame grew. She gave concerts throughout America and even toured Europe, with James accompanying her when he could, Mrs. Sullivan always by her side. She also became involved in advocacy for blind education, working with schools and institutions to improve teaching methods and opportunities. She gave lectures on blindness, challenging people's assumptions and prejudices. And perhaps most importantly, she and James opened the Blackwood School for the Blind in Chicago, a revolutionary institution that taught blind children not just to survive, but to thrive. Music, mathematics, literature, practical skills, everything was taught with the assumption that blindness was a challenge to overcome, not a limitation to define someone's life. The school's motto, chosen by Kate, was simple: "We see with more than eyes." The greatest joy came in the spring of 1891 when Kate discovered she was pregnant. The news filled her with equal parts elation and terror. "What if I can't do it?" she confessed to James one night. "What if I can't care for a baby properly? What if something happens and I don't see it in time?" "Then we'll handle it together," James said firmly. "Kate, you've overcome every challenge life has thrown at you. You'll be an extraordinary mother. And you won't be alone. We'll have nurses, Mrs. Sullivan, and each other. Our child will be lucky to have you." The pregnancy was difficult, and Kate spent the last 2 months on bed rest, frustrated by her forced inactivity. But when their daughter was born in November 1891, a healthy, squalling baby they named Sarah Catherine, after James's sister and Kate herself, all the fear melted away. The first time Kate held her daughter, running her hands over the tiny face, counting the perfect fingers and toes, she wept with overwhelming love. "She has your nose," James told her, his own voice thick with emotion. "And your chin," Kate said, having felt them both. "Is she? Can she see?" "Her eyes are open and following my finger," James said. "Yes, love, she can see." Kate felt relief wash over her, though she'd prepared herself either way. "Then she'll see the world for both of us," she whispered. As Sarah grew, Kate proved every doubter wrong. She could tell her daughter's mood by the sound of her breathing. She could sense when Sarah was about to cry before the first sound emerged. She knew her daughter's laugh, her cries, her babbling, better than anyone else. And when Sarah was old enough, Kate began teaching her piano. Sitting together at the Steinway, Kate's hands guiding Sarah's small fingers, was a joy beyond measure. "Mama, why can't you see?" Sarah asked one day when she was 4 years old. "I lost my sight when I was a little girl," Kate explained, "but I learned to see in different ways. I see with my hands, my ears, my heart. And you know what? Sometimes I think I see more than people with eyes, because I pay attention to things they miss." "Like what?" Sarah was fascinated. "Like the fact that you're about to giggle because you think you've hidden your toy behind your back very cleverly. But I heard you pick it up, sweetie. You can't fool Mama's ears." Sarah dissolved into laughter, and Kate swept her up in her arms, breathing in the scent of her daughter's hair, feeling her warm little body, and thanking God for this incredible life she'd built. By 1895, the Blackwoods had 3 children: Sarah, followed by twin boys, James Jr. and William. Their home was filled with music, laughter, and the beautiful chaos of family life. Kate continued to perform occasionally, though she'd cut back to spend more time with the children. But she never stopped composing, and several of her pieces became popular throughout America and Europe. James's railroad empire continued to grow, and he became known not just for his business acumen but for his progressive policies. He hired blind workers when they had the skills, paid fair wages, and insisted on safe working conditions. Many credited Kate's influence for his humanitarian approach. But their greatest challenge came in 1896, when Vivian Ashworth published a book called The Folly of False Progress, in which she argued that people with disabilities should not marry or have children, as they would weaken society and burden their families. Though she never named Kate directly, it was obvious who her primary target was. The book caused a sensation, with some prominent figures agreeing with Ashworth's views, while others condemned them as cruel and backward. Kate's response was measured but powerful. She wrote an open letter to the Chicago Tribune that read, "Miss Ashworth suggests that people like me should not marry or have children because we might weaken society. But I would argue that what weakens society is not disability, but the narrow-mindedness that cannot see past it. I am blind, yes, but I am also a wife, a mother, a musician, a teacher, and an advocate. I pay taxes, employ dozens of people, contribute to my community, and raise children who will, I hope, make this world better than they found it. My blindness has taught me to listen more carefully, to develop my other senses, to appreciate what I have rather than mourn what I've lost. It has made me stronger, more empathetic, more determined. These are qualities I hope to pass on to my children. If Miss Ashworth believes that society would be better off without people like me, then she advocates for a society without compassion, without resilience, without the understanding that true worth comes from character, not physical perfection. I choose to believe in a better vision of society, one where we judge people by what they contribute, not what they lack. One where love and capability are recognized in all their forms. One where my children will grow up knowing that their mother's blindness doesn't define her, and that overcoming challenges is something to be proud of, not ashamed of. Miss Ashworth is welcome to her limited vision of society's future. But my husband, my children, and thousands of others who refuse to be defined by their limitations are building a different future. And I believe our vision will prevail." The letter was reprinted in newspapers across the country. It sparked a national conversation about disability, capability, and what it meant to contribute to society. Vivian Ashworth's book sales plummeted, and she largely disappeared from public life after that. Meanwhile, Kate became a symbol of possibility and perseverance, receiving thousands of letters from blind individuals and their families thanking her for her advocacy. Years later, historians would point to Kate's letter as a turning point in the early disability rights movement, though Kate herself never sought such grand recognition. She was simply living her life, loving her family, and refusing to accept limitations others tried to impose on her. The years passed quickly, filled with music and family and love. The Blackwood children grew into remarkable adults. Sarah became a doctor specializing in ophthalmology, determined to prevent blindness when possible and help those with vision loss navigate their world. James Jr. took over the railroad company, expanding it beyond even his father's dreams. William became a composer and music professor, carrying on his mother's artistic legacy. And through it all, James and Kate's love remained the foundation of everything they built. They still took evening walks together, Kate's hand on James's arm as he described the changing seasons. They still shared music, Kate playing while James listened with the same rapt attention he'd had that first day in the Palmer House music room. On their 25th wedding anniversary in 1914, James threw a massive celebration at their home. Friends, family, business associates, and dignitaries from across the country attended. But the moment Kate treasured most was when James led her to her Steinway, her original Steinway, the one he'd recovered from Milwaukee, and asked her to play. "Play our song," he said, "the one you composed for our wedding." Kate played Love at Union Station, and as the familiar notes filled the room, she felt James sit beside her on the bench, just as he had that first morning when she'd played for him at the hotel. "Do you remember?" he whispered during a soft passage. "Every moment," Kate replied. "Every single moment. Do you have any regrets?" Kate's hands never stopped playing as she answered. "Not one. You gave me back my music, my dignity, my purpose. You gave me children and a life beyond anything I dreamed of sitting on that train platform. You saw me when others looked away. How could I possibly regret any of it? You gave me just as much, James said softly. You taught me that strength comes in many forms. You showed me that love isn't about perfection. It's about seeing someone completely and loving them because of who they are, not despite it. You made me a better man, Kate. As the final notes of the piece faded, their children started the applause, and soon the whole room was on its feet. James and Kate stood together, and he pulled her into his arms, kissing her in front of everyone just as he had on their wedding day. Forever, Kate whispered. Forever, James confirmed. And always. James Blackwood died peacefully in his sleep in 1928 at the age of 78. His hand clasped in Kate's as it had been for nearly 40 years. Kate held his hand through that last night, feeling the moment his breathing changed, knowing before the doctors confirmed it that he was gone. She played at his funeral, a piece sheet composed in the hours after his death, called Until We Meet Again. There wasn't a dry eye in the church. Kate lived another 12 years, continuing to teach, compose, and advocate for blind education. She never remarried, telling anyone who asked that she'd had her great love, and one was enough for a lifetime. She died quietly in 1940 at the age of 80, in her sleep, sitting at her beloved Steinway. Her children found her the next morning, her hands still resting on the keys, a slight smile on her face. They are buried side by side in Chicago's most prestigious cemetery, under a monument that features a bronze statue of Kate at her piano, her hands on the keys, her face turned toward the sky. Beside her, though not visible in the statue, is where James rests. The inscription, chosen by their children, reads, James and Catherine Blackwood, he saw her heart. She touched his soul. Together they proved that love sees beyond sight, and that the greatest vision is the one we hold within. The Blackwood School for the Blind still operates today, now called the Blackwood Institute and serving as a leading center for blind education, assistive technology, and advocacy. In the lobby hangs a portrait of Kate at her piano, and beneath it is a plaque with her most famous quote, Blindness is not the end of sight, it is the beginning of a different way of seeing. And sometimes, the heart sees more clearly than the eyes ever could. Kate's music is still performed in concert halls around the world. Her compositions are studied in conservatories, and her story is told to children learning about perseverance and possibility. The original Steinway, the one James had recovered for her, is displayed at the Chicago History Museum, along with Kate's personal letters, concert programs, and the ring James had given her on the night of her first concert, his sister Sarah's ring. And in Union Station, on Platform 7 where James first found Kate abandoned and alone, there is now a bronze plaque that reads, On this spot in 1889, Kate Brennan waited in despair, and James Blackwood found her in compassion. From that moment of kindness came a love story that changed a nation's understanding of disability, capability, and the true meaning of sight. May all who pass this place remember that we see most clearly when we see with the heart. Even today, more than 80 years after her death, visitors come to Chicago to trace Kate's story. They visit the museum, tour the institute, attend concerts at the performance hall named in her honor, and stand on Platform 7, imagining that foggy night when a wealthy railroad baron chose to see past a young woman's blindness to the extraordinary person within. Kate Blackwood's legacy lives on, not just in her music or her children, but in the countless blind individuals who have found courage in her story, in the expanded understanding of disability and capability she helped create, and in the simple but profound truth she lived every day. That love, like music, speaks a language that transcends sight, that the heart can see what eyes cannot, and that sometimes the greatest treasures are found not by looking, but by truly seeing. Their love story truly did shock a nation, but not in the way the gossips expected. It shocked them into reconsidering their prejudices, into expanding their understanding of love and capability, into recognizing that the greatest disabilities are often not physical, but in the narrowness of our vision about what is possible. Now that you've experienced their complete story, we'd love to hear from you. Rate this tale out of 10 in the comments below. And tell us, what does their love story mean to you? How has it changed the way you think about seeing and being seen? Your thoughts help us bring you more stories that celebrate love in all its beautiful, unexpected forms.